With half of the country under lockdown and COVID now breaking out in regional centres as well as our big cities, the sense of uncertainty is perhaps as great as it has ever been, and the need for clear messages and political leadership never clearer. This is a problem affecting the whole country, not just one state. That's increasingly thrown attention on what appears to be a rattled Prime Minister, who was repeatedly confronted today with questions about his performance in managing the pandemic. Beyond questions about the virus is a new alarm about the economic fallout and whether the federal government will provide enough support to avoid renewed recession.
Is everyone right to go?
Good afternoon and welcome to South Australia's daily COVID-19 update.
Good morning, everybody. And can I start by thanking...
These morning press conferences have become very familiar to the 12 million Australians living in lockdown. In Sydney, the news is routinely bleak.
We did have 110 cases to 8 p.m. yesterday.
At least 60 of those cases were infectious in the community, a big increase on yesterday. That makes a return to any sense of normality even more difficult to imagine.
In truth, we won't live as freely as we need to or we would like until those vaccination rates increase.
We've all seen this story before. For months, states have been pleading for more vaccines. Today, New South Wales pleaded again.
We have actually done as much as is humanly possible. The issue is we need more vaccine. We need more Pfizer.
More and more Pfizer is going out to all of the states and territories.
The problem for the Prime Minister is that despite his protests, slumping poll numbers reveal the Prime Minister facing high levels of disapproval of his handling of the pandemic, and a majority perceive him as playing politics and avoiding responsibility. As things have unravelled, we have seen less of the Prime Minister. But the perception problems are biting even in traditionally friendly territory for the government, like FM Breakfast Radio.
Can you honestly say to me that the government's taken accountability? Like, I've never heard the word sorry. Guys, you know what? Sorry, we did screw it up, but we're getting it right now.
Well, we've had problems and we've dealt with them, and that's what I do every single day. Sure.
Can you just, you know what? Can you just say sorry, Jace? It'll make me feel so much better, and then I feel like
What we're doing is fixing the problems and getting on with it.
Scott, I'd even take a my bad, Jace. Just my bad, Jace. We're moving on.
We're fixing the problems and getting on with it, guys. That's what people need.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Lodge.
Later, in a pugnacious press conference at the Lodge, Morrison once again appeared to blame medical experts for delays in the vaccine rollout.
Are you suggesting that the government, when advised by the Technical and Advisory Group on Immunisation, that the preferred vaccine for people of particular ages is 50, and then they changed it to 60, that the government should refuse that advice?
You've just said there's a constant appeal, though, for them to change that advice.
Well, sure, but they're the ones...
Different about then as opposed to now.
No, they're the ones who make medical assessments. So if you're seriously suggesting that the government should have neglected medical advice in the handling of the pandemic... No, I'm sorry, that is exactly what you're suggesting.
Why is it that you so firmly believe the government doesn't need to say sorry about anything in relation to the failings of the vaccine rollout?
I think Australians just want us to get it right. Sure, there's going to be plenty of critics in hindsight. They'll have various motivations for doing it.
As you can see, we've got agreements in Brazil.
Hindsight also helps remind us how the vaccine rollout started, with a flurry of publicity and this now infamous slogan.
It's not a race, it's not a competition, it's about the health and safety of Australians.
Today, the Prime Minister told Adelaide Radio the slogan was taken out of context.
We were talking about how cautious we needed to be when it came to the approval of vaccines for use in Australia.
But he kept repeating the line well after the vaccines were approved.
Now, Prime Minister, just before we go, because you know you're a busy man, our vaccine rollout, it is behind schedule. Are you still confident of meeting that deadline of October? And will you consider New South Wales as help to help speed things up?
The key is it's not a race, right? It's not a competition. You've got to do it safely, you've got to do it carefully, and you've got to do it in partnership, and that's what we're doing. We're vaccinating Australia. That will open Australia up again.
The vaccination rollout has been slow in some states, Prime Minister. Are you worried about that? We have vaccinated 100,000 people so far.
We'll get this done by October, as we said we would, but we've got to do it safe. As Brendan Murphy said yesterday, this is not a race.
Even for a Prime Minister notable for his marketing ability, it's difficult to find much good to say about Australia's vaccine rollout. International comparison shows just 11.7% of the entire population is fully vaccinated. But the government is now quoting the share of the eligible population vaccinated. That's 14.5%. Hardly something to write home about, and still at the bottom of the OECD league table. It wasn't long ago that the Prime Minister said we couldn't live under a doona. Today, the message was we might have to stay under the doona for the foreseeable future.
To all Australians out there today, it's tough, and it's going to continue to be tough in the weeks ahead and potentially months ahead.
Jane Halton is the chair of the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation and also chaired the National Review of Hotel Quarantine. Jane Halton, the number of unlinked cases that we've seen in the community in New South Wales today feels like the virus has really jumped the fence. Is there any likelihood that it can be brought back under control anytime soon?
Well, of course, we're now relying on our contact tracers, but we're also relying on the goodwill and the cooperation of everyone in the community. So no, I'm not going to say that it's completely jumped the fence yet, because I don't think that's what the evidence shows us. But I do think it's a very real warning that if we don't get everyone doing the right thing, and literally, as we've been asked to stay at home, then potentially we'll be in for bigger trouble. But not quite there yet. The next couple of days are really, really important.
But the fact that the number of people out in the community has gone up this far into a lockdown is a very worrying sign, isn't it?
Absolutely. And certainly I think we've discussed before, the first number I look at every morning is the number of cases that have been in the community while infectious and the unlinked cases. They're the numbers we're watching. Now, we also know that we usually watch the average over a couple of days, because as we've all seen, the numbers go up and the numbers go down. So we're looking to see that number not stabilise at that 43 or thereabouts. The total number of cases is running at a bit over 100. We all know that. But yes, that number today, particularly in New South Wales, I certainly not quite gasped, but I was a little worried about it. So I'm hoping tomorrow that will be lower and we'll keep the average about where it's been. If it continues to go up, I think we're all going to be quite worried.
Well, given things are moving so quickly, we're now getting all these sort of conflicting and contrary messages from people about who has the priority on vaccines now, even the advice about who should be getting vaccinated. Is it dangerous that we have multiple voices, including our political leaders, giving vaccine advice and recommendations now?
I think it's difficult for people if there are so many different messages, because they get confused. And so we need to, I think, stick to the really basics here. We've got vulnerable people in our community, the elderly, they've been a priority. Our healthcare workers, the front line, they're a priority. And then we're going down the age range. So at the moment, of course, if you're over 50, you're a priority. But you're right, Laura, we need to simplify this message so everyone understands. And of course, the good thing is actually you can get on the website and it will tell you whether right now is your moment. And if you are worried, go and talk to your doctor.
How helpful is it to have the Prime Minister both apparently blaming ATAGI for the vaccine delays and also publicly pressuring it to change its advice?
I understand the Prime Minister's frustration, I genuinely do, and I think it has been hard to have this somewhat nuanced advice from ATAGI easily translated into a message to all of the community. But let's boil it down, shall we? There's some population-wide advice that ATAGI have given. It applies to the broad population. It's never person-specific advice. And particularly if you're in that younger bracket, you can go to your doctor and have a conversation about which vaccine is right for you. So let's make that distinction, populations versus personal.
Jane Halton, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Pleasure.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.